this is Dog Mom Prepper. I'm doing this video on dog vaccinations because I think the controversy between should I vaccinate my dog because I need to protect them from everything possible and the natural holistic approach saying we're over vaccinating and killing our pets. Because of those two opposing sides, I just wanted to take the time to give you the facts as I know them. This video is for the education and consideration in making a plan that is best for you and your family. Your dog's vaccines are designed to protect them against an array of different illnesses. Vaccines work by injecting your dog with a small trace amount of the infectious organism, be a bacteria or a virus. These organisms are placed under your dog's skin as strains of the bacteria in question, called a live vaccine, or with a dead sample of the disease-causing organism. Now, the difference between a modified live vaccine and a killed vaccine is this. Most often, breeders or people that live in rural areas will go to the feed store to get their pets' vaccines or to get their puppies' vaccines. Because they're sold over the counter that way, they are a modified live vaccine. Modified live vaccines give your dog a small dose of the live bacteria or virus to boost your dog's immune system, to recognize these microorganisms, and to then build immunities to them. At your vet's office, it is a much safer vaccine. It is called a killed virus vaccine, and what it is it sparks the immune system with what the virus looks like, so that the dog can then begin to fight it off with their immune system and build immunity that way. So oftentimes in the veterinary field, we'll see puppies come in that are 10, 12 weeks old. For whatever reason, it seems to be more in hound dogs and your bully breeds, not saying that they're more predisposed to it than any other dog. I have seen it in Chihuahuas often also, that a breeder has vaccinated the dog at 6 or 8 weeks of age, and then by 10 or 11 weeks of age, the puppy has parvo. So dogs that are vaccinated with a killed vaccine usually do not contract it. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen them actually contract the disease or virus from the vaccine. I've only seen that in live vaccines. So whether you're going to your veterinarian or your holistic practitioner or wherever you decide to vaccinate your dog, should you choose to vaccinate your dog, there is a difference between a live vaccine and a killed vaccine. So make sure you ask those questions. Many people believe that since dogs do not receive vaccines in the wild, that they can survive without vaccines when domestic. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Frequently, owners that do not vaccinate their dogs are also dog owners who believe that their dogs should be outside-only dogs. This is dangerous. This is dangerous because outside-only dogs have a higher exposure rate to wildlife that does carry many of these viruses and diseases, and also to other stray pets that are not vaccinated. Primarily, you'll see stray dogs coming around, nose-to-nose contact. Some of these viruses are airborne. Some of them are contacted through feces. These are some of the things that we're going to talk about when we get into each one of these vaccines and what the viruses actually are. A lot of them are included in what's called a 5-in-1 or a 7-in-1 vaccine. Most of us have heard of those. So I'm going to point out when we get to those diseases and viruses which ones are included in a 7-in-1 or a 5-in-1 vaccine, and which one of them are called non-core vaccines or optional vaccines. So we'll get into that when we get into each virus. The parvovirus, extremely contagious, contracted through feces. The untreated mortality rate is 91%. Now, often we only see this in puppies or senior pets who have not been vaccinated ever. Even after recovering from parvo, they can still shed it in their feces for up to 2 weeks. So just because you think that you don't take your dog out around other dogs, yet you walk them around the block, you're exposing them to every other dog in the neighborhood that has walked around the block. So because you may be a responsible pet owner and having decided not to vaccinate your pet and say they're never exposed to any other dogs, I don't take them anywhere, they never meet any other dogs or go on play dates, they're still being exposed, again, to every dog in the neighborhood who has walked that same pathway. Parvovirus is specific to canines. Your cat cannot catch it and you cannot catch it, but it is highly, highly contagious between dogs. The coronavirus, like the parvo vaccine, is included in the 5-in-1 or the 7-in-1 vaccine. It infects the intestinal system. It's contracted through feces and saliva. The incubation is 1 to 5 days, so we don't start to see symptoms until about usually 5 to 7 days, a week after the pet has been exposed. Diarrhea, decreased appetite, and a lethargic puppy are usually the symptoms. It is rarely fatal unless compromised immune systems exist, such as a brand new puppy or a senior citizen dog or a dog with an underlying health condition. I have to tell you from my experience, most, not all, but most of the cases that I see with coronavirus have come from a live or a modified live vaccine given by a breeder to brand new puppies under the age of 6 weeks, or under the age of 8 weeks old. From 6 to 8 weeks old, puppies vaccinated by a breeder with the vaccines from the feed store are usually the dogs that we do see with corona. Now, that dog has contracted the coronavirus from the live vaccine it received, but it has also shared or shed the virus with other dogs it has come into contact with for that entire 1 to 5 days of incubation. So that's something to consider. Rabies. Rabies is a vaccine that is given independently. It affects many mammals, including humans. It's contracted through a bite from an infected mammal. Now, if treated prior to symptoms, it can be treated. It is fatal once the symptoms begin, and the incubation is 2 to 12 weeks or longer. So if you have come into contact, or your pet has come into contact with an animal that you believe has rabies symptoms, it is imperative that you reach medical or veterinary care immediately. Even if your pet is vaccinated, it may be close to the end of the expiration of the vaccine, and your pet's immunity to it may be lower. So even if your pet has gotten its rabies vaccine, it's come into contact with another dog or wildlife that you suspect might have rabies, you immediately need to get your pet to the vet. Hepatitis. Hepatitis is included in the 5-in-1 and the 7-in-1 vaccine under the name adenovirus 1 and adenovirus 2. It attacks the cells of the liver. It's contracted through feces and urine. So again, walking the dog around the block, taking him to the dog park, taking him to the lake down the street where 100 other dogs have been who may or may not be vaccinated. This is where they can contract hepatitis. Death is common in severe cases within days. However, surviving the first few days can result in a full recovery and all future immunity. So once a dog has hepatitis, if they do survive hepatitis, they do have complete future immunity. So hepatitis or adenovirus 1 is included in your 5-in-1 and 7-in-1 vaccines. The distemper vaccine. Distemper is still around, folks. It is out there. We see dogs with it still regularly, and not just dogs that have been vaccinated with live vaccines. We see this in dogs that have contracted it from other dogs. It's extremely contagious. It's very similar to the measles. There is no known cure at this point for canine distemper. It's carried primarily by wildlife, carried by the air. So the raccoon is over in the field next door, it starts sneezing, it has distemper, the wind is blowing the right direction, your dog's got his nose in the air sniffing, he can contract distemper. Now, often what I hear from people when I ask them if their pet has their distemper vaccine, no, my pet's acting perfectly fine, his behavior is good. This is not your dog's behavior or temperament vaccine. This is a serious and very real threat to pets. Distemper is included in your 7-in-1 and 5-in-1 vaccines, and it is also a vaccine, or a virus that can be titered for. Now, titering is a blood test that your veterinarian can run on your pet. It can be done on the rabies immunity and the distemper immunity to see what level of immunity your pet has to those two viruses to decide whether or not you want to vaccinate. So if you want more information on vaccine titers, definitely discuss that with your veterinarian, or you can send me a message and I'd be more than happy to go over that with you. Leptospirosis affects canines and humans. It can result in death if untreated, but treated leptospirosis cases only have a 10% mortality rate due to secondary complications. So it's not just the lepto. The lepto is affecting the body, affecting the immune system, but it's the secondary complications, the secondary infections that come from having lepto that actually do cause death in some cases. It thrives in water, and it's contracted often through urine and contaminated water, meaning a dog or a raccoon or squirrels that may have leptospirosis have urinated in an area, water has collected in that area for whatever reason, hose water from watering your garden, rainwater, it's collected there, you're walking your dog, he starts licking water out of this pond, you tell him to stop, but he's already ingested leptospirosis. It is that easy to catch. Leptospirosis is included in the 5-in-1 and 7-in-1 vaccines, and it is not a dead virus. It is something that we still see now. Oftentimes I hear people say, we've been vaccinating our pets for so long that these viruses and diseases no longer exist. That is not true. Leptospirosis does still exist. Lyme's disease is not a core vaccine. Lyme's disease is an optional vaccine. It's spread through tick bites. Humans can contract Lyme's disease also, but they do have to be bitten directly by the tick. It is not contagious from dog to human. It's contagious from tick to dog or tick to human. Symptoms include swollen lymph nodes and lameness. Often no symptoms are present. You can have Lyme's disease for years and not have any symptoms of the disease. It attacks the kidneys and nervous system, and it's more common in the pink areas mapped out here on the photo above. So the southeastern states, northeastern states, and then the far west of California do have the deer tick, which carries Lyme's disease. So if you're in one of these areas with the pink, you might want to check with your local veterinarian, local animal control officials, and they'll be able to tell you if the Lyme's disease vaccine is recommended for your pet. Bordetella, this one again is a non-core vaccine. It is the kennel cough vaccine. It's not just for dogs who kennel though. Just because you think, I don't board my dog, I don't take him to the kennel, they never go anywhere, they're not in contact with other dogs. It is an airborne bacteria. It is an airborne bacteria, meaning that the dog 5 doors down that is not vaccinated starts coughing. It gets a pretty serious cough. It's come down with Bordetella. Again, the wind is blowing the right direction. Your dog's outside barking. It can contract Bordetella. It is that easy, guys. My dogs have actually, even being vaccinated, have come down with Bordetella. There are 15 different strains of kennel coughs, Bordetellas, parainfluenzas, and canine flus. I have actually brought it home to my own dogs who are vaccinated for it on my clothes, on my scrubs, from working with other puppies, working with other dogs that do have it at work, bringing it home on my clothes, not even realizing it, have given it to my dogs. So Bordetella is one vaccine for sure that I definitely give to my dogs because of our situation, because I am exposed to it on a daily basis and I do not want to bring it home to them. It multiplies and destroys the trachea, which results in a coughing, gagging, sneezing. They do get fevers and serious depression. The incubation is 5 to 7 days, so the dog comes into contact with it. A week later, they come down with the cold. If left untreated, it does lead to pneumonia. So this is something you might want to consider, is the Bordetella vaccine. Parainfluenza is the canine flu. This is a core vaccine, which is included in a 5-in-1 or a 7-in-1 vaccine. It's highly contagious. This one is a dry cough. Fever, wheezing, runny nose, lethargic. The vaccine for this is either intranasal or injection, and there is a difference between the body's response to an injection or an intranasal vaccine. If you have questions on that, which one you think you might want to choose, you can message me. I'd be more than happy to explain the difference in the two of them. But I'm trying to keep this video short for YouTube, so I'm not going to get into that at this point. But again, if you ask, I'd be more than happy to explain it. Here's some considerations when deciding whether or not to vaccinate your dog. Your local county, city, state laws, the geography in which you live, such as the Lyme's vaccine, whether you're deciding to get that vaccine or not, if it's a real risk in your area, the age of your pet, the health of your pet, the circumstances. Again, with the Bordetella vaccine with my pets, it's our circumstances. We are exposed to it regularly, so having that vaccine for them on board is a big deal to me. Also, the pet's vaccine history comes into play. If a dog has never been vaccinated before, you might want to consider getting a set of vaccines for the pet and then reboostering in 1 year and deciding if you want to continue after that. That's completely up to you. When it comes to non-core vaccines or the optional vaccines, there is some disparity as whether or not dogs should be subjected to non-necessary vaccines. Some claim that these vaccines are simply done to put our own minds at ease. However, there are others who believe that they should guard their beloved pets against every possibility for illness and infection. The truth is that there really is no definite answer until you take into consideration all of the factors to which I've mentioned. If you find yourself overwhelmed in trying to decide whether or not your dog would benefit from a specific vaccination, then it's always best to consult your veterinarian. By looking at your dog's medical chart, listening to your concerns, your vet will be able to help you to make the right decision for your dog. Something else that I often hear from people is, I don't know if my vet's going to tell me the truth. If you're afraid that your veterinarian is not going to tell you the truth, or that your veterinarian is just trying to benefit financially from the decisions that you make for your pet, you need another veterinarian. That's all I'm going to say at this point on that. There's a lot of debate on veterinarian practices, so we're not going to get into that since this video is on vaccines. If you have any questions about how you should choose a veterinarian, some questions that you could ask when interviewing veterinarians, again, I'd be more than happy to go over those things. Just send me a private message and we can discuss it. Here's my opinion. Vaccinating all puppies on a schedule is important. Puppies need those vaccines from 8 weeks of age to 16 weeks of age every 3 weeks. The reason puppies are given so many vaccines during this growing phase of their life is because you're trying to catch that exact moment when the mother's immunity wears off from breast milk to when the puppy has its own immune system. So that is why puppies are vaccinated every 3 weeks on a schedule until they are 16 weeks of age. In my opinion, that is important. I also vaccinate only at a vet's office. They do have the low-cost clinics, they do have the humane societies, and they do have the feed stores that will vaccinate your pet. If finances are a serious concern, that's the only way that you can do it, and you decide vaccines are what's best for your pet, absolutely, by all means, then that's what you need to do. In my opinion, though, vaccinating at your vet's office is the only safe way to vaccinate. In my opinion, Bordetella is a serious concern. It's seriously contagious, and I recommend personally that pets that my dogs play with, go on play dates with, that we interact with, are also vaccinated for Bordetella. In the veterinary field, most of our pets are vaccinated for Bordetella. Highly contagious, and it makes the dogs feel really, really icky if they do catch it. In my opinion, immune support is a major factor in whether you decide to vaccinate your pet or not. Titering for rabies and distemper in senior pets, in my opinion, is the best way to go. If you have a dog that's been vaccinated for their distemper combo vaccine, 7-in-1 or 5-in-1, for the last 6 years, you might want to consider running an immunity test on the dog to see where their distemper levels are at, to decide whether you're going to continue to vaccinate a senior pet whose immune system is starting to become compromised or weaker. And finally, my opinion is to do what you feel is right and do not be bullied. I don't feel that you should be bullied one way or the other. I think that you need to make informed and educated decisions on your own for what's best for your family, and for everybody else, it's none of their business. Thank you for checking out my video. This is Dog Mom Prepper.